Hi, I'm Cindy Luzanecki. I work for the Office of Early Intervention as an infant toddler specialist, and I'm here today to talk about developmental screenings. What are they, why do them, and what will it tell me? Developmental screenings are a snapshot of your child's development for their age. A developmental screening is typically done by a doctor's office, although there are multiple agencies throughout the counties that will offer these free screenings. Screenings can be done periodically. They can be done monthly, every 3 months. American Pediatric Association recommends that pediatricians offer screenings at 9 months, 12 months, 18 months, and 24 months. But keep in mind that screenings can be done as early as on a 2-month-old, all the way up to at least a 60-month-old or a 5-year-old. The screening is going to show us what your child's strengths are and what are some areas that they may need some support in. When we look at a screening, it's a tool we use called an Ages and Stages questionnaire. It's a tool that is really parent-driven. That means that you as the parent are actually identifying your child's strengths versus me telling you what your child is doing. You're the expert on your little one, not me. When we look at screenings, there are 5 areas of development that we always focus on. First one is on communication. We look at how does your child get their wants and needs met. For that newborn baby, it's when you finally figure out the difference between a hungry cry versus a I'm really tired cry, to the 12-month-old who is pulling your shirt to take you to the refrigerator and pointing that they want a drink, or perhaps that 3-year-old that's finally putting multiple words together and carrying on a conversation with you. The second area we look at is gross motor development. The gross motor is how do we use our large muscle groups. Development starts from the head down. What does that mean, starts from the head down? It means in order for a baby to be able to really grow into their gross motor skills, they need to be able to hold their head up. So the first thing they're going to learn is how can they hold their head up? And when you're holding them up in your arms and they're looking over your shoulder, they can sustain their head, they can turn it from side to side and look around, all the way down to when that child finally begins to walk. So gross motor is those large muscles. Maybe that baby on the floor who's just kicking and running their arms all over to eventually rolling, crawling, pulling themselves up, and next thing you know, they've taken off running. We look at fine motor. Fine motor is that development that we learn from the inside out. Well, what does that mean? It means, first of all, that core muscle, that area between our neck and the top of our thighs is so important for babies to have control over. And it's our job as a parent to give them an opportunity to get that muscle built up. Putting them on the floor, holding them in your arms, not keeping them in too many devices for too long. That fine motor is how do they use their fingers. So maybe it's them scratching at their clothes or on the floor when they're laying on that blanket to eventually being able to self-feed, holding their bottle, bringing it to their mouth, eating Cheerios off their dinner tray, and eventually using fork and spoon, and eventually that knife. We look at problem solving. You go, now what does a little baby need to learn about problem solving? Well, we want them to learn sooner rather than later. It's much easier to get that little one to learn problem solving than waiting till they're 16. And so when we look at problem solving, think of that baby laying on that blanket again. And all of a sudden, out of the corner of their eye, they see that red ball. It's the dog's. But boy, they want their hands on that. How are they going to get there? Well, they're going to process it. It's almost as if you can see the wheels turning in their head. They begin to roll and eventually get to that ball, and before you know it, it's in their mouth. And that's how they've solved that problem. I want it, I see it, I'm going to get it. Or how about that toddler who they ask for that cookie, and mom says, nope, no cookie, it's dinner time. And the next thing you know, they've got that chair from the table up against the counter, climbing up into the cabinet. As a mom, you go, oh no, safety first. But the reality is, hey, that's pretty cool. They figured out how to get what they wanted. Not the safest way, but at least they've learned. And finally, we look at personal social. What are they doing for themselves? Well, you go, babies don't do much for themselves. No, they don't. But eventually, as you keep getting them dressed every day on their changing table, and they lift their leg up for you eventually to put their pants on, or perhaps to take their socks off. We're looking at, are they able to feed themselves, comb their hair, brush their hair? Do they know what their body parts are and that they're theirs? And when they finally look in the mirror, they're able to identify themselves there. It's like the light bulb goes off. Wow, that's me. So those are those personal social skills we're looking for. It's always important to give them an opportunity to practice those skills as they get older and give them a chance to take those socks off before climbing into the bathtub, or perhaps putting that shirt on over their own head. Even though if it's on backwards, it gives them an opportunity to develop. As for screenings go, they're not diagnostic, meaning we're not looking to identify your child with a need. We're just looking at what are their strengths. Typically, we find girls tend to be more chatty, go figure, and boys tend to be more gross motor oriented. But what about that little boy who you really want them to start picking up that pencil and paper because they're almost going to preschool? Well, you just have to think outside the box. What can I do to help them use that same muscle group without giving them paper pencil? Well, how about on a nice warm day giving them a bucket of water and a paintbrush and having them paint that garage? Same muscle group, a lot more fun than scribbling on paper and pencil. As far as talking, giving them an opportunity to talk or giving them choices so that they're using their words. You can't ever talk to your child too much. The more they hear, the more they learn. Reading is a great opportunity for them. You need to think about development as a journey. It's a road they travel. And on this road, they're going to pick up these skills to get stronger and stronger. A child has to work on one area of development at a time, meaning if they're very gross motor oriented, then maybe they're not talking as much. But when they finally have mastered that gross motor skill, boom, now you feel like, wow, I think they went to bed, woke up, and they haven't stopped talking since. If after screening there are still some concerns with your child's development, your doctor may make a referral to the Office of Early Intervention. If not, you as a parent can make that phone call yourself. Early intervention is there to support families with kiddos ages birth to 3 who might need a little bit more help meeting their developmental milestones. In early intervention, we actually do evaluations. The difference between an evaluation versus a screening is that screening again is that snapshot of development, but an evaluation can actually diagnose. It can tell us, okay, this might be why they need a little bit more extra support, and this is how we're going to do it. If you're not sure who services your area for early intervention, you can go to the DHS website and look at the county that you live in, and they'll be able to tell you that office that's going to meet the needs of your child. All of these services are done through the state with support from families, and they're done typically in a child's home, which is their best place for them to learn.